Hello, hello. We meet again here in this space. And if you are unfamiliar with this space, I'll remind you that this is Terrestrial Aura here on Spotify, and you can also find this podcast on YouTube and possibly TikTok if all goes as according to my plan. So today I wanted to bring up a topic that I felt worthy of conversation after last week recording a podcast that I, for some reason, personal to myself, decided I did not want to share. And with that, it brings a few other topics. So I'm going to just kind of lean into them all at once and we can discuss this topic. And as always, this is permitting that Aldrich allows me to do so. If you are watching this on TikTok, I'm sorry you can't see the actual presence of me and my baby here, but I really just kind of want to keep my personal life personal and my personal life online. But okay, so yes, as I mentioned before, last week I had recorded an incredible podcast that was very dear to me. I broke out in tears even during the podcast just because the topic was just talking about something that really deeply mattered to me. And what it really was about Pluto in Aquarius. I don't know who here is familiar with astrology and who is not, but what this message really involved for just speaking about how I am feeling a lot of energy and channeling a lot of messages that are really just representing Pluto in Aquarius being the community, being exposed to something that recluses them away from social media and inwards into themselves, declaring sovereignty over themselves and within themselves, and also interconnecting with others through some form and through some way in doing this. Now, when I say this, and I say the channeled message aspect, I also touch topic on this as well in that video. Maybe one day I'll feel comfortable and I'll release that. But for now, I don't really want to. So we're just going to pick it up from here and move on. But I do want to touch on the topic of channeling because that is the topic of today. The topic of this podcast is how to feel comfortable with channeling and understanding what and who that channeling is. Now, whenever I say understanding what and who that channeling is, if you are familiar with people who do a lot of channeling, you'll notice a lot of times they'll name themselves something that's outside of themselves in some way, something like a name or something that's existed before or some kind of entity or some kind of divinity, source of divinity or whatever it may be. And now in the previous video that I was speaking on, as I mentioned, was channeling. And I mentioned in that audio that I am not channeling anything other than the highest source in which I am. And the highest source in which I am is the energy in which I receive, and I'm able to transmit and translate that energy into the physical matter of form, in the form of words, out of voice, out of an octave, out of a frequency, out of something that becomes a matter. Because if a matter is even a thought, then the matter exists once the thought has went outside of the form of only the thought, but into the other through another form, which would be the voice. So as my messages come to me channeled, I sometimes have an issue with using that term because I don't want to use something as a tool that is something that I am already, because I understand that I am that connecting medium of the frequency to be able to receive what is perceived as the channeling and also what is perceived as me. Therefore, the channeling is myself of myself at the highest octave of self through that awareness, being able to emit that frequency, that energy, those words, that message to you. And now I also want you to know that I recently have also done a video on TikTok. This video is a prediction of what I foresee in the upcoming years with Pluto entering Aquarius. This is something of that matter of the topic in which I just said, in which I feel a bit uncomfortable with, because I'm like, I don't want to seem as if I'm someone who needs to channel. Not that I am above or underneath anyone who channels. It's just a matter of the energy that I am is of the frequency of the resonance of the energy that currently is. Therefore, I am merely an octave of the resonance, giving my insights, my intel, and my intellectual matures of that conforming inside of me to the outside of myself. And now I do oftentimes question if this is something that I even feel that I should be doing, because I feel that we are all of that nature. We are of all some connecting variable of the aspect in whichever way that we are conformed to be in this present of this momentum of now. Hearing my statements and my perspective is merely one out of the many others that you can find and you can hear for yourself, or you can find even within yourself. So whenever we look at it in this way, you can also see the era of seeing this within ourselves, seeing that we don't have to watch people outside of ourselves, or we don't have to get confirmation of things outside of ourselves, but instead we can go within ourselves to be able to find that awareness of ourselves and no longer seek out, but seek within and find within that the energy resonance in which and what matches, to know what is the resonance of what you want to bring within that to you to match with, if that makes any sense. And also, another thing that I've been thinking about heavily is how we're moving into an energy of, if I don't resonate at a level in which you can match with and you can relate to and you can pertain to or find pertinence in your reality, in your realm of your existence, then you do not have to enter mine, nor do I have to enter yours. And we are moving into the energy of the awareness of that. We are all of this same collective, yes. We are all of that same source of creation, yes. We are all varying perspectives of the matters and the frequencies in which we are, and in which we perceive and we receive and we concede to. But at the same time, we are all simultaneously living amongst this realm, as this realm, in this awareness of this form, in the many variables of the awareness, which included in this form. So as we become more aware of ourselves, we can also see what is aware of us and not need to feel that imbalance to be able to find ourselves in the awareness of things and others and places and sources or whatever it may be that aren't even a match of our frequency, because we wouldn't want to be spending our energy of the currency in our exchange on something that is worth less than the value in which we are worth. And the value in which we are worth is the value in which the value we will be found at in the resonance of the others that are of frequency and match in return, to be able to receive the frequency of the message that you're emitting, for it to be consciously weaved. So if that makes sense to you, which it may or may not, take it with a grain of salt. If it doesn't, and maybe come back and check in on it at a time, maybe it will. And if it does resonate, then most definitely check out my other platforms. You can find me online at Terrestrial Aura. I will conclude this podcast here, but I do always thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for being here. And if I do decide to put that other podcast out, I will most definitely let you guys know. Do know that all of my work is interconnecting, so what you'll find here, you'll find something in pertinence to, most likely on TikTok and possibly Twitter or X, I guess we could say. Either way, I thank you for being here. I thank you for listening, and also YouTube, obviously. But yeah, I thank you all for listening. And if you do enjoy this content, you can like it. And if not, just I wish you the best on your day, and I thank you for stopping in. And your awareness of me gives me an awareness of you, which makes me have a point of view that feels worthy to share with more than just myself, but also with you. Until we meet again, thank you for listening.